Good morning, Rutherford County. This is Connie Davies. I'm here today to share with you some more good news about what God has done in some of the lives of our members. And today I have a very special guest. This is my mother-in-law, and I call her Mom Davies. She's not really my mother-in-law. She's really my mom. But Mom Davies is probably the oldest member of our church. You'll be shocked to know that she is I'll be 95 next week, 95 years old. And if you were to see Dorothea Davies at our church and in our home, you would be shocked because she runs circles around most people. Mom, ever since I've known Mom, this has been about 38, 39 years. We've been married 38 years, I think. She's always been a woman of faith, one that has always wanted to serve God, always wanted to help people. She has such a sweet heart. And that's all I've known about her, is that she just wants to help people. And even to this day, at the age of 95, she spends a lot of her time helping people in the church, going to visit people in the hospital. She helps us at the house, watch the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. We live together, she and my husband and I and my sister-in-law here, Danae. We are extended family here, and we love being together. We know that's kind of an unusual thing in this day and hour. A lot of children move away from home after they grow up, but we live together. We like being with Mom, and she loves being with us and raising your great-grandchildren, my grandchildren together. And she's just a real integral part of everything that goes on in our lives and in the church. And I will share this one thing with you that's kind of sweet. My son, oldest son, Justin, says that when he thinks about his grandma, Dorothea, he says that age is not a number, it's an attitude. And we had a chance to share that with a gentleman right out here just a few moments ago, that age really is not a number, it's an attitude. She has an attitude of a 60, 70-year-old, and she doesn't seem to be slowing down a whole lot. So she's only got a few minutes to share 95 years of a life lived for God, and I'm going to leave it with her now to share with you about what God has done in her life through the years. Mom?
Yeah, thank you, Connie, and it's good to be here this morning, and thank you, Jim, and Rutherford. It's good to talk to y'all. Well, it's the only reason I'm here and I'm alive, and I love life is because I've learned to make the right choices. I had made a lot of wrong choices all down through my life. And I'll be telling you some of them that got me into this situation and that. But really, it all comes down to, what do you choose? Do you choose to get up out of bed? Mm-hmm. I mean, even though you got aches and pains, mm-hmm. and you really would rather stay right there, what am I going to do? I choose to go with Jesus today. I choose to get up and see what he has for me. And then I start walking. And with each walking, within a couple minutes, I keep feeling better and better. And then I just sort of walk out of it. And then next thing you know, I'm dressed and I'm ready to go. I get up about 7:30 in the morning and spend all through the day. Sometimes I get an hour nap in, and sometimes I don't. But I go to bed, maybe 10:30, 11:30 at night. But it's always a choice. And so I'm making these choices. But it wasn't that way. In the beginning, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. And this was in 1929.
23.
That's right, 23. 29.
Some people do the math and figure that one out. It's 23.
29 is the year of the Depression.
Yeah.
And that had an influence on my life. My father, I was an only child, and my father was working in Baltimore City, and we rented a house. And now, Depression days, it's when there was no money and a lot of no jobs and a bread line and all that. And I was 6 and 7 years old during that period. And he couldn't keep going. He couldn't pay the rent. So we moved into the county Baltimore County with my mother's people and my mother's mother and father. Now that meant there was a lot of bickering, a lot of fighting and going on, and a quarreling that continually took place. So we went through that, and my father decided, well, we got to get out of this. We got to get back into the city. So after 6 months, we moved back into the city, and back into the very house we had left, really. And then I was back in school in a different type school situation, switching from one type of teaching to the other type of teaching. And then I spent 6 months there, and they had, we've got to go back. So we go on back the second time to live with my grandparents. And then staying there together, it was very hellish. And but we had to remain there. And so that went on. Now, there was no physical abuse, but I lived in that atmosphere of that continual fighting, or else such a silence would come over. Nobody would speak to anybody else for many weeks, and then all of a sudden would burst out again, and then they would go on to things. So then I was in second grade, and I missed out on learning how to read. Now, in our school, Word of Faith, I help in the school and with the children, they're teaching them phonics, and they learn beautifully to read. But back at that time, I heard the phonics, but then I heard another sight way, and I was mixed up, and really, I just didn't learn to read. So I put on the bluff, and I just became a big bluff. I just bluffed my way through school and covered all that up. But in second grade, there was a girl. Her name was Catherine, and she really didn't like me. And she really grew after me, and she kept at it and kept at it. In third grade, she kept at it and kept at it. And it built up. I received all that. You see, it's what we receive and what we don't receive has effect on us all through our lives. Right. When you're a child, if you receive something harsh and somebody pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding at you, and which I did, and in this hatred built up in me, this fear of her, this believing what she said, all started settling itself in me. It will settle in you, and you become a part of that. I chose, because I didn't know any different, to receive it, because I was just a little child.
And we know that today, Mom, they call that bullying, and that's a big problem in the schools today. I don't know if you're aware, but it's a big problem. It goes back. It's been going on forever and ever, but it does have an effect on children's lives, for sure.
To form your personality.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So that have had effect on me. I had asked my mother, told her, could she do something for me? And she says, everybody has their enemies. You can't do anything about that. And so I just had to live with it. My mother was really my source of my strong hurts. She had a bitter mind and bitter tongue, and she would just thrash at me. And when I was 8 years old, we had moved out of my grandparents' house into a bungalow on the same property. And I was alone in the bungalow, and I decided to clean. And I went through and cleaned the whole place, and I thought I did such a great job. She'd be so pleased when she came home. Well, she did come home, and she was not pleased. And she took me through every room and showed me everything I did wrong, and complained and complained and complained. And that was when what sunk into me as a child, and see, I didn't know any different, was I'll never make it. And that I at that time, standing in that house with her, I actually received that. I had come to the Word of Faith many years later, and it was in 1991. The Lord gave me a vision of that living room, that bungalow, and he told me, "You're 8 years old," and I saw all the furniture just exactly the way it was then. And then he told me that's when it came in. So that's how I know that it was 8 when all that came in. But you see, I made the wrong choice. I received all that. And that made an effect, on my life. Then I get to 6th grade. Now that was some year. In that year, I had a condition that was the doctors couldn't do anything for, and it weakened me a lot. And so I'm out of school now. But a friend of my mother's said, "Now what you need to do is take Mark 11:23 and rehearse it. I mean, say it over and over until you get it into your heart, and he will do it." Now, Mark 11:23, "Whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but believe that those things that he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith." Well, I took hold of that. I chose to take hold of that. And before I was put in my bed at home, I would go in at school. I'd leave the classroom when I say I have to go to the restroom. And I would go into the restroom and go into the little booth, you see, and I'd stand there and put my head up and look up at God and just say, "I believe." And then I'd say, "Whosoever." And then I'd say, "Thank you, Jesus." Thank you, God. I didn't know Jesus. Say, "Thank you, God." And I'd walk out. My family did not go to church. There was nothing there about religion. Nothing was said about Jesus. There was no prayer. There was no Bible, But that was my touch of the Bible. Well, sure enough, it happened. I received my healing, and I went back to school. And I felt so relieved, from all that. And also in 6th grade, we were compelled to read a book from the school library. Now, this book, we would give a report on it. And there was one book I read, and I never forgot a part of it. It has to do with God. But anyway, it was a nun, and she went to China to do 4 months of missionary work. And when she got there, they took her to a lean-to around in back of their place and showed her that's where she would be sleeping. And then they left her. Well, now, there were lice all over that lean-to. I mean, it was the ceiling, the walls, the floor, the straw, the cow. Everything was full of lice. And so she says, "God, I cannot stay here for 4 months with lice all over this place. I just can't do it. So I'm asking you that there be no lice, nothing on my bed when I sleep here." Sure enough, she was there for 4 months, and there was never anything on her bed. Yet it remained every place else. Now that planted a seed in me. There's something about prayer. I mean, I just had a big thing about prayer that brought me something good, and now she's telling me this, and that plants the seed in me. And then I move on to 7th grade, and in 7th grade, I have the urge, I have the desire to go to church. So I get up in the morning and dress, and he says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to church." And well, okay. So I walked out. Now, the nearest church was about a mile away, and it happened to be an Episcopal church. It could have been any denomination, but I was heading for that church, and I enjoyed it. So the next Sunday, I'm getting ready to go again. And my father says, "You going again?" And I says, "Yes." He says, "Well, if you're going to go all the time, I'll take you." So he took me. He drove me. But I always had to walk home. But that was the beginning of my church life. From then on, my life, was full, with church. Now, I'm coming into high school, And I'm coming to my high school years, and I find that it's a different walk. Now, there was no drugs. Now, you have to remember, this is the late 1939s, the early 1940s, before World War II, just before World War II. So there was no drug scene, but there was drinking. There was they liked to smoke, and trying and tell dirty jokes, and do all that kind of stuff. They make fun of us at that age. They say all they like to do is like chew gum in class. There were no policemen that had to go in any school system. I mean, it wasn't anything like that at all. But I found that I didn't want to smoke, and I just didn't have a desire to smoke. So some of there were 4 girls. They got me behind the barn. We were out on an outing, and it was night, and out on the farm. And they got me behind the barn and got my head up against the back of it, and they're trying to jam a cigarette in my mouth, and you've got to smoke, you've got to smoke. What's wrong with you anyway? And all I could do was keep my teeth together. And so they couldn't get it in. So they finally gave up. But they also gave up on me. They weren't interested in me anymore. And I found that a lot of weren't interested because some of them would start, girls and boys, mostly girls, they'd start telling these dirty jokes. And I'd laugh at them at first. Then I thought, what am I doing laughing at this? It's nothing funny. And so I said, don't tell me anymore. I don't want to hear anymore. And so they stopped telling me that. And I wouldn't drink, and I wouldn't cuss, and, all that kind of stuff. So I found that I wasn't so good with the girls. But yet with the boys, they seemed to like me, Those days, if a boy walked you home from school, he carried your books. Now, and so I'd have some. I'd mostly every day have a boy carry books for me. Some boy would come along, and they just wanted to talk with me, and they just liked the fact that I was different, So you see, I was seeing all this was Jesus, or not Jesus, pardon me. I didn't know him. I knew there was a God, and God was in me. And I kept, moving in that direction. And I was aware, now this is something you might be aware of too. You look at the sky and you see the beauty of the sky, and you think, there's got to be a God. I mean, look at that beauty. You watch the sunset, see. With me, it was we'd go down to the ocean. We were in Maryland, and we'd go over to the ocean. And I'd look at the moon up over the ocean and the reflection. And I'd stand there and I'd just weep. Gotta be a God. There's a God, God would try to show you through his creation, things that are about him. Well, now my father was in business, and poultry business in Baltimore City, and so at this age he's getting me into the business too, so I can help out. And it's
Tell
retail.
Where it was that he works is in the Lexington Market, because right. I think that place still exists. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So it was a poultry stand in Lexington Market.
Yeah, right down in the middle of Baltimore City. Anyway, he would put things on the scale, and he would always overweigh, always overcharge. Read it, heavy. And I saw what he was doing, and I said, you can't do that. And well, I was, I says, but you can't do that. He says, but I have to pay for the paper and all. And I'd see these poor people come up from the city A lot of the people that would walk a couple blocks, to get their food supply and go back home, and they'd put their pennies and lay their little bit changes up on the counter, and it counted out, and they did not know that they were paying additional money. They were being charged an additional quarter, which was a lot of money for a turkey, not a turkey, but a chicken. And I kept pleading with my father. And when we got home, I kept pleading with him, you can't do it, please don't do it. But he insisted. And that put a break between me and he. I couldn't receive from him anymore. I just sort of dismissed him from my life.
There was an element of distrust there because if he was stealing from people.
That's right.
And you knew that it was wrong.
That's right. And so, but he would let me wait on the trade and do all the wrapping and sometimes the cutting and this and that and talking to the people. He thought I was good to be there, but I could never go to the scale, and that bothered me. And he never curved my mother. She would just rage, and he never would curve her, and to stop it. And that bothered me. And I took these little things. I mean, I didn't receive love from my mother and father. And I needed it. So I took these little things and held them inside. And then, remember, I knew I was never going to make it. Now, I don't know what I wasn't going to make. It's the most ridiculous thing, that I knew I was never going to make it. But what am I going to make? But I still felt, and I was bluffing along because I felt, the bluff. Well, I'm going to marry this fellow, Dick Jett, and World War II is start breaking out now. By the way, all the ladies are wearing dresses. Nobody wears slacks during that period of time. And everybody's hair is cut short. Nobody has long hair. And all across the United States, we're all short-haired. I always knew short hair. Never let mine lay down. And so, anyway, I was going to marry this fellow, and he was at West Point. And then a fellow moves across the street, and he wants to date me. So first I'm going to check out and see if this fellow Dick up in West Point is agreeable for me to date this other boy, because he's going to be away. He was going to be away for 2.5 more years. And so Dick says, oh, yes, of course, you go ahead and you date him, because you need to go out a bit, get around. You go ahead. And that's okay. So I tell this other one, Chick Davies, that I was going to go. So he knew the setup. So I start dating him, and we're just good friends, We have a good time. But he would take my hand once in a while, and he would say, you don't know it, but you're going to marry me. And no, I'm not going to marry you. I'm going to marry this other guy. And then we'd just go on, get my hand, you're going to marry me. I said, no, I'm not going to marry you. So this went on as a game. So then I was going to go up to see this fellow Jet up at West Point to spend 5 days on what they called a hop. And I had all the dresses and stuff for it, fancy stuff. And so I have a date with Chick the night before, and he handed me a little gift. And I received it, and it was a necklace, and I stuck it down my suitcase. So my friend and I go up by train to the West Point, and we get in there, and I get all my clothes hung up, and I see this little thing. I take it out of my suitcase, and I hold it in my hand, and just like that, just so suddenly, I had a great love for Chick Davies. I couldn't get over it. I sit there and I cry, and I'm looking at it. The tears are even falling on it. And as I'm saying, I mean, I love him. I love him. I want to go back to Balmer. What am I doing here? And the girlfriend, you crazy? This is great up here. I mean, this guy is so good looking, and you got to be crazy. And here I'm sitting, just crying. Well, I only lasted a couple days, and I had to tell him, and then I had to hurry on back. And I left after 2 days, really, and went back home. And so I married Chick Davies. Now he comes in with the same. What time is it? Whoa! Oh, well, I gotta hurry up.
Tell about Dad though, because we know that God somehow moved in that direction to get you in the will of God to marry the right person. You don't need to be so much in a hurry right now. I kind of threw off to find the time, but your story's precious because we're seeing how God led you every step of the way. That God had a place in your heart that you really did want God, and somehow He was leading you into His will without you even knowing it.
That's right.
And even marrying Chick Davies, who was Danae's dad, my father-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the main thing, Mom, is you would have been a carbon copy of your mother had you not married Dad.
Yeah.
Because you were turning out that way, and Dick Jet would have let you be that way. But when you married Dad, it was a new ball game.
Yeah. Well, then I heard about the Word of Faith through Charles, my son, and my daughter here had gone down. And I came down and I saw Jane Whaley and Sam and the church people. And I was so thrilled when I walked in and I saw this. I just wept with the joy of it all. And I knew that this was what I read about in the book and what I really wanted.
You found your woman of faith.
That's right. That's what I wanted. And so then I started making plans and changing things in the house so that it would sell easier. Changing the paint, wallpaper, different things.
Putting in air conditioning.
So I could come down because I knew it was going to come down.
And really what led you and Dad, also your love for God and wanting to serve Jesus, but what also led you to make that final decision and Dad to be in agreement with that also was the fact that he had begun to develop dementia.
Yeah.
And he had a need, you had a need for there to be a change. He was either going to end up in a nursing home or by himself, and you up there by yourself with him, or be with family. And you made the right choice for sure. Yeah. You and Dad together made the right choice. Yeah. And you came down, and tell us what your life has been since then.
Well, it started out pretty rough because, you see, I was really a woman that was leading a double life. I'd go out ministering to people. I'd come to know Jesus, at least I thought I did, born again, through the Baptist church. Finally, I found a church that knew Jesus. And so I was talking about Jesus, and I was interested in women, and I was giving. And then I switched my whole self, walk in my door, and I would be this silent, this hurt woman who was nobody cared for. I couldn't fit in. I was never going to make it. And I goofed off all terribly. And by the way, I learned how to read in a hurry. That I was 34. I learned how to read in a hurry, and in fact, in one day of showing me, I could pick it up, and I knew, and so that problem was over. I was caught up on that, but anyway, on this other business, I was just a mess. And so when I moved down here, I was in my pattern. I wasn't out caring for people, so I greatly was a self-possessed shelter, trying to stay in my room all the time, hard to live with. I was a mess. There was no doubt about it. But they're working with me and helping me and being patient with me and showing me. I started coming out of it. Right. And then I came out of it, and then I said, it's a choice. That's what I
It's a
started
choice.
learning. It's a choice.
That's right.
It's a choice to be happy.
That's
a
right.
choice to receive Jesus.
And that's what she's done, and her life has changed. And isn't she a beautiful lady? Those of you that are listening in can't see her, but she certainly is beautiful inside and out. And we love Dorothea Davies. Everybody does. We just thank you again for listening today. She may come back on Wednesday. I think she has some more to share. We'll see what the will of God is. But we thank you for listening in today. And if you want to listen to any other videos, go to www.wordoffaithfellowship.org. Thank you so much for listening in today. And Mom, thanks for being here.